Back when I was a monk at the Mahasiddhatanayeka in, at that time, Rangoon, founded by the former Prime Minister U Nu and lots of other lay men and women, I was told to leave by Ne Win and his people several times as a monk. And at that time, I guess maybe a brash American artist, somewhat deranged through excessive meditation syndrome, I asked if I could meet with Ne Win to appeal the exiting orders. And people were just shocked by the concept of you don't talk to the dictator. So that was number one. That was my first outing. I just grew up with conversation, and direct communication was by far better than avoidance, fear, shame, or violence.
That
Just
was
grew
what
up in a culture.
that was what Dosu tried since the beginning. She tried to talk to Unde Win as well, right? So
That's
that's
right.
dialogues that she started doing, started trying to talk to the dictator. So that's what she tried. Yeah.
And Mon Myat, she's she was highly encouraged at those earliest talks. You may remember in 95 and 96, after her first release, after 6 years of detention, when she and Utinu and Uchimong stood above her gate at 54 University Avenue and spoke to the people who risked their freedom, their home, their bank account, their jobs, their lives. She was speaking to the dictator Ne Win. All of them were doing all that they possibly could to speak to the authoritarian architecture inherent within the Ne Win ecostructure of violent totalitarian oppression. That's where they were trained on how to moisten the Hiri and Otapa, to relax the deep, invenerating grip of the human psyche and the DNA mixed with their own karma, to overcome this projection of their psychopathology upon the people. Your anger, your greed, and your delusion is not caused by them. It's your inability to see the nature of moha, the Pali Buddhist word. But coming back to your question, also after my unbanning from Burma, I went back into the country based on Dosu's support. And I also sent a letter to, at that time, dictator Tan Shui. I actually felt, quite honestly, as an investigative journalist, I really wanted to understand, like, why do you kill, oppress, torture, rape, mercilessly denigrate your own beloved people who you as a Buddhist and they as a Buddhist in a multicultural, multi-ethnic country, why do you do that? I genuinely wanted to know. And the reason for a lot of this was based upon my teacher, the Venerable Sayadaw U Pandita. He made it very clear to me, Mon Mon Myat, in the earliest days of my involvement with Dosu and U Tinu and the rest of them, U Win Tin, and that your role is not to vilify, to demonize, and to aggravate. It's to elevate, to expand, moisten the latent wisdom, metta, karuna, hiri, conscious transformational awakening in the mind of the other. And I'm a fundamental Theravada Buddhist, and Sayadaw U Pandita was. And I'm just a real believer that all of us have those latent tendencies to transgress if the conditions tragically move this way or that way. That's the beauty of the Dhamma, is ehi pasiko, wupanai. For yourself, see what's true, self-responsibility. And so Dosu, people don't really know Dosu. I've begun to see how many opinions people have about her being autocratic, authoritarian, elitist. She just happens to be super intelligent, short-tempered like me and a lot of other men and women in the world, but she will look after your well-being even if you're the enemy. Very rare in the world do you have an individual who will take care of you as family who's transgressed upon your own family. She's a radical expression of reconciliation and forgiveness in action. My last point about this, Mon Mon Myat, and I think it's important for the people of the world to hear. I was blessed to spend 9 nights with my teacher, the late Venerable Seda U Pandita, before he passed away in 2016. We did a book of conversations called Wisdom for the World, The Requisites of Reconciliation, a book of conversations. And he outlined the requisites of reconciliation on how to go about bringing peaceful coexistence, even with radical disagreement, how to go about that in the country of Myanmar for Dasu, for U Win Tin, for U Tinu, for U Win Tain, for the NLD, for the people, how to use the power of the human heart to overcome this war machine, this abject, deep state-driven addiction to violence, toxic patriarchy, and the more that you can kill to so-called extinguish the so-called other, the more successful and celebrated you are. Look at going on today in Israel and in Palestine, in Ukraine, in Russia, Sudan. Dasu and the leaders of the Burma, they took the high road of the human heart and said, let's put the gun down, let's put the missile down, let's put the drone down and talk about it. It was an experiment. You can't say it failed because they were led by conscience and dignity, and I really respect that.